Isaiah 7:10 through 17. Again, the Lord spoke to Ahaz. Ask the Lord your God for a sign, whether in the deepest depths or in the highest heights. But Ahaz said, I will not ask. I will not put the Lord to the test. Then Isaiah said, Hear now, you house of David. Is it not enough to try the patience of humans? Will you try the patience of my God also? Therefore, the Lord himself will give you a sign. The virgin will conceive and give birth to a son, and will call him Immanuel. He will be eating curds and honey when he knows enough to reject the wrong and choose the right. For before the boy knows enough to reject the wrong and choose the right, the land of the two kings you dread will be laid waste. The Lord will bring on you, and on your people, and on the house of your father, a time unlike any since Ephraim broke away from Judah. He will bring the king of Assyria. So this passage is closely tied to all of chapter 7, 8, 9, and 2 Kings 16. And so as we go through this, we will be talking about, I will pull up passages from time to time from 7 and 8, but I would encourage you to read 9 and 2 Kings 16 to get the full story. So let's begin at the beginning. Again, the Lord spoke to Ahaz, which means that the Lord has already spoken to Ahaz. That's one. And so this is X2. This is the second time. And also we have to ask, who's Ahaz? Who is Ahaz? And to answer those questions, we'll go up to the beginning of chapter 7. Ahaz, son of Jotham, son of Uzziah, king of Judah. So if we imagine Israel, the nation that is, the southern kingdoms were called Judah or Jerusalem. And the king in the south is a man named Ahaz. Let's keep reading. King of Aram, King Rezin of Aram, and Pekah, son of Remaliah, king of Israel, marched up to fight against Jerusalem, right, the south, but they could not overpower it. So this is the north, and you've got the north referred to as Israel, because they had 10 tribes, and the south just had 2, the foremost of which was Judah. And in the north, the king, his name is Pekah, P-E-K-A-H. The north is also sometimes referred to by their capital city, which is Samaria. So Pekah and Samaria, the northern tribes, are fighting against the southern tribes of Judah, and they have added to themselves another force, the king of Aram, which we would call today Syria. And their capital city is Damascus. And their king, his name is Rezin. So the north allied with Aram to attack the south. And because they're in this situation, God sends a message to the king of the south. He sends a message to Ahaz. And he says, be careful, keep calm, and don't be afraid. Do not lose heart because of these 2 smoldering stubs of firewood. What he's saying is that though these guys are hot, the northern tribes are hot like fire, they are soon going to be destroyed. Just like a smoldering stub of firewood, because of the fierce anger of Rezin Aram and the son of Remaliah. Aram, Ephraim, so another name for the northern tribes is Ephraim. Ephraim. And the reason that Ephraim is the premier tribe of the north is because they're the largest, just like Judah is the main tribe of the south. But basically what God's saying, you don't have to worry about this. It will not take place. It will not happen. For the head of Aram is Damascus, and the head of Damascus is only Rezin. And then Ephraim too will be shattered. The head of Ephraim is Samaria, and the head of Samaria is only Pekah, Remaliah's son. So if you don't stand firm in your faith, you'll not stand at all. He's saying, hey, Ahaz, all you have to do is trust in me and things are going to be okay. So this is the second time the Lord is delivering this message to Ahaz. And this time he not only promises him it's going to be okay, he says, Ask me for a sign. Ask you, Lord your God, for a sign. Whether in the deepest depths or the highest heights, God is trying to prove to Ahaz, you can trust in me. I'm going to take care of you. But Ahaz said, I will not ask the Lord. I will not put the Lord to the test. And at first, this looks like it might be a statement of humility. Maybe that Ahaz has read his Bible and he's not going to test the Lord, but that is not the case. Ahaz does not trust God. That's why he'll not put his trust in him. And to that, we have to go to 2 Kings 16. And what we will discover there is that King Ahaz runs to another country called Assyria. And they're kind of the bad boys of the pile right now. They're the biggest army. They have the biggest armies, and so Ahaz runs not to God. He runs to the king of Assyria, and the way that he does this is he takes all the gold out of the temple and he gives it to the Assyrians. Ahaz does not trust God. In fact, he's an idol worshiper. He even sacrificed his children. All of this is in 2 Kings 16. And he's fully committed to just following the king of Assyria. So when Ahaz says, I will not ask, I'll not put the Lord to the test, he's coming up with a holy sounding reason for his unbelief and his idolatry. So God's got something to say. Isaiah says, hear now, you house of David, right? Ahaz is descended from David. Is it not enough to try the patience of humans? Isaiah seems to be getting frustrated. Will you try the patience of my God also? Therefore, so here's what God is going to do because of the unbelief of Ahaz. The Lord will give you a sign. So what's this sign going to be? Well, since you didn't ask for one, I'll give you one. Here's the sign. The virgin will conceive and give birth to a son and will call him Immanuel. Now that's confusing for us because we have always heard this in reference to Jesus. And if we're thinking about this right, Ahaz, trust in me. You're not going to fall. God, I don't trust in you. Okay, Ahaz, ask me for a sign. God, I won't ask you for a sign. Okay, I'm going to give you Jesus. That's your sign, right? That just seems a little, difficult for us to stand. So maybe by continuing to read, we'll get a little bit more information. He will be eating curds and honey when he knows enough to reject the wrong and choose the right. So that's the prophecy here. This son will be eating curds and honey. Those are important foods as we'll get going. When he knows enough to reject the wrong and choose the right. So as a young child. Whoops. Y-O-U-N-G. Oh man, that's terrible. Okay, let's try that again. As a young child, he will be eating curds and honey. 4, before the boy knows enough to reject the wrong and choose the right, again, young age, the land of the 2 kings you dread will be laid waste. So God is promising that Israel and Aram will be destroyed before the boy is eating curds and honey, before the boy can choose the wrong, reject the wrong and choose the right. This prophecy is given roughly in maybe 725 BC. So yeah, before 725 years has passed, this is going to take place. So it's kind of a strange prophecy, but maybe there's more to it. Let's keep reading. The Lord will bring on you and on your people and on the house of your father a time unlike since Ephraim broke away from Judah. He will bring the king of Assyria. So remember that Ahaz runs to the Assyrians, not to God for help. And so God says, I'm going to use the king of Assyria to bring down Aram and bring down Israel, but I'm also going to use him against you. Let's keep going and look ahead to chapter 8 so we can see how this promise, how this sign plays out. And it's important to know before we get there that prophecy can often have an immediate and lesser fulfillment and then a future and greater fulfillment. So just as an example, God promises a son to David, who's going to build the temple. And of course, Solomon builds the temple, but also, so he's the immediate, the lesser, but also God eventually puts Jesus into the picture, who builds the temple of the living God through the church. And that's the future and greater fulfillment. So that's often the case. Stop it. And so we get to chapter, this is still chapter 7. So here's what's going on. Now it's being unpacked a little bit more. But just to kind of key on some specific things, the king of Assyria is going to come shave your head and your private parts and cut off your beard also. He's going to take away your sovereignty as a nation. He's going to shame you. The nation of Judah is going to be destroyed basically by the king of Assyria. And that day, you guys are going to be his slaves. A person will keep alive a young cow and 2 goats, and because of the abundance of the milk they give, there will be curds to eat. All who remain in the land will eat curds and honey. Why are they eating curds and honey? Shouldn't there be other things to eat? No, because in that day, every place where there are 1,000 vines worth of silver shekels, there will only be briars and thorns. The thing that's going to happen here is that the Assyrians are going to come into the south, and they are going to eat everything. So in their war against the north, they're going to come into the south and they're going to eat everything. Once cultivated hills will now be places where cattle and sheep are turned loose to run. And then how does this play into this son who's going to be a sign? So there's going to be this baby who's going to be born. And by the time the baby is born, all he'll have to eat is curds and honey, because all of the events right here will have already transpired. And that takes place, that is, the lesser and immediate fulfillment is found in chapter 8. So this is the beginning of chapter 8, so that'd be like 8 verse 1, with this child here, Maher Shalal Hashbaz. So God has Isaiah go make love to the prophetess. She gives birth to a son. He's named Maher Shalal Hashbaz. And before this boy knows how to say mom, dad, the north has been destroyed. The plunder of Samaria has been carried off by the Assyrians. And then God's going to make good, stop it, on his punishment to the south. The king, so they're rejoicing over Rezin and Remaliah. That means they're rejoicing in what the Assyrians have done. And now the Assyrians are going to come. They're going to flood over Judah, swirling over it, and you're going to cry out, Immanuel. You're going to ask God, please be with us. And here's another promise. The nations, they can rage, they can prepare for battle, they can do whatever they want, but it will not stand, for God is with us. What's really cool is in Hezekiah, who is a fantastic king, and who is Ahaz's son, Hezekiah will also go up against the Assyrians, or rather the Assyrians will come against Hezekiah. And because Hezekiah trusts in the Lord, the God of Israel will destroy the Assyrian army. So there's just a little prophecy there that gets immediately fulfilled in Hezekiah. This is what the Lord says, with his strong hand upon me, warning me not to fall in the way of this people. So there's a message for Isaiah here about not fearing people, but fearing the Lord. And then there's this piece in here that the Lord will be a holy place and also a stumbling block. And we see that, of course, fulfilled in Jesus. And then he says, bind up this testimony of warning, seal up God's instructions among the disciples. And here is an incredible statement from Isaiah at the end. I will wait for the Lord, who's hiding his face from the descendants of Jacob. I will put my trust in him. Here am I, the children the Lord has given me. We are signs and symbols. Isaiah knows he and his son are signs, not fulfillment. And so he decides to continue to wait on the Lord, to put his trust in God. Isaiah is waiting for Immanuel. He is still waiting for the fullness of this. In this, up here, God is with us is a hope. Immanuel is a hope, but it's still not the fulfillment of it. His son is just the immediate and lesser fulfillment for King Ahaz. So as we come back to the text that we started with, Isaiah 7, 10 through 17, and we go back to this prophecy, the virgin will conceive and give birth to a son, and will call him Immanuel. We discover that had an immediate fulfillment in Isaiah's son. But this Immanuel, this God with us, for Isaiah's son, it was like, God, please be with us because the Assyrians are taking everything. It wasn't the sort of Immanuel that was filled with much hope. It was really more of a judgment. The one who will come and be the Savior, the one who will come and help his people, this one, Jesus, will come much, much later, not just after the northern tribes are destroyed, but even after the southern tribes are destroyed, even after Israel is scattered to the ends of the earth, and they're barely a people when the Romans come, that then is when Jesus is sent, and it's just the proof that God is always faithful. God is always faithful. Even when Ahaz, who's just this terrible king, won't do what God says, tells him to do, God remains faithful to his people. The door to salvation is always there. This promise of Immanuel is still good. God really is with us. And this story here of God's incredible and unbreakable faithfulness to us is just such an encouragement. I hope that's an encouragement to you.